Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to City Hall. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk,
Thank you,
please,
Mr.
let's execute the roll call.
All right. Mayor Williams,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton,
I'm here.
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Cook.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman's received an excused absence, and Councilmember Rist.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I will reach into my bag and find my reading glasses that I'm struggling to see this agenda with. All right, here we go. There we go. I know, I want to get some Caballero glasses down on the nose.
Okay.
All right, any announcements, council members? Councilmember, you don't have any announcements? Right, Councilmember Baker. Oh, Councilmember.
Oh.
Okay.
I may have to leave by 4:15 today if we're hopefully we'll be done, but I gotta go pick up. Yeah. Hey, I'm just, y'all surprise me sometimes. So, to pick up a kid. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Rist.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to fill the gap here. Greetings, colleagues, folks in attendance. Good to see you all here. Just a couple things. So first thing is it was great on Tuesday to be at the Discover Durham event. It's good to see the mayor there. It's exciting to see the development of the Durham Next effort. And I think that certainly the role of tourism development as part of a larger economic strategy is a key piece. So I thank all the Discover Durham folks for that, and the folks serving on the board of Durham Next, including the chair, our good friend Farad Ali. It was somewhat humorous to leave that and see all the Mardi Gras events and know that y'all, my 89-year-old mother went to Mardi Gras for the first time. We're having dinner tonight. I'm gonna find out what happened, if she can tell me. So,
What happens in New Orleans stays in New Orleans.
Yeah, exactly. So I was happy to see all the Mardi Gras events. I was thinking about my mom over there celebrating. So it's kind of fun. Hey, also I want to bring greetings from the AFL CFO at statewide level. They had a conference on Wednesday, statewide conference, and I was invited to speak on a panel. They were curious to learn about the role that Durham had played in raising wages for our workers last year and the investment the city had made, how we did that, how we built community consensus, and how our neighbors and residents were willing to dig hard and pay for a tax increase to support those raises for our city workers. So I was glad to share that information from Durham. And actually one of the couple bus drivers were there. Sean's out there, yeah. Including our 2 million mile driver was there. So it was great to see her. So again, a lot of love for Durham and a lot of appreciation on the part of the state labor movement for the work we did to raise wages for our city workers. So very proud of that and glad to see Durham sort of, invited us to speak about that work. Let's see. The last thing I want to say, just, and this to my council colleagues. So I was at a retreat all day yesterday for Jordan Lake One Water. That's the association that's around the Jordan Lake Basin and is working on the Jordan rules revisions, which is a big part of our work at the Jordan Lake. As you know, also at the Upper News River Basin Association, we're working on revising the rules for Falls of the News Lake. This is important work to make sure we have clean water, but also to make sure that we have functioning water bodies that can serve environmental, social, and economic interests for our city. So I'm happy to bring back, and actually I shared that meeting with JV Loperfido, who's on Public Works Stormwater, who's our staff person on that committee. And I just want to mention this to the council. I think at some time we may want to come back and have a larger discussion about the role of JLO. We don't take water from Jordan Lake right now, but it's our next water source. So it's critical for us to make sure we have a clean, accessible water source there. So at some point in the future, Mr. Manager, we may want to have a conversation on the council about the work of JLO. This is a long-term investment we're making in JLO, again, to make sure we have a water body that meets its uses in terms of economic, water and environmental and social purposes.
I have you on JLO and
UNRBA,
right?
yeah. So I'm like the water guy here, yeah.
So it may be good to have those discussions together.
Exactly, yeah. And we have top-notch staff, as you know. Michelle Wolfolk is the liaison to Upper News River Basin Association. JV is the liaison to Jordan Lake. And just having a larger conversation about water, and again, our long-term investments in these two water bodies and the rules revision process that's going on. It's a long-term process that we're involved in, but the critical piece here is that we want to move away from this focus simply on nutrient management and more to a process of investment in what we can do as the investments we make across water management, across stormwater, in making sure the lake is as healthy as it can be, and that we play a key role in that because it's, again, so critical to our residents for water and other uses. So let's think about it. Yeah, when is the right time to come back and have a larger discussion about water? I'd love to do that and bring the key staff members in.
Definitely work on that. You and the EPA are against the world.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and to my honorable colleagues and to everyone in chamber with us on whatever platform you may be watching on. Councilmember Riss, what your mama did at Mardi Gras is grown folk business,
Yeah.
and you may want to stay in your lane.
Even 89-year-old grown folks.
Yeah, you don't want to get into that, man. Just very quickly, Mr. Mayor and friends. Firstly, looking forward to this weekend. Leaders from all over the country, municipal leaders, will be descending upon Washington, D.C. For the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference. We will be spending several days on Capitol Hill meeting with our legislators to talk about what's going on and to advocate for issues that are relevant to our state. I'll be wearing two hats for Durham and for the North Carolina League of Municipalities this weekend. And Mr. Mayor, you'll be there and we'll be doing your thing as well. So looking forward to some meaningful, substantive conversation. All of it won't make the news, but it will be outside of cameras, the substantive nuts and bolts stuff that we need addressed as residents and citizens. So looking forward to that trip. And finally, colleagues, I'll have to cut out probably between 3:30 and 4 today to leave town for league business. So hopefully the meeting will be done by then. But just a heads up, if I step out at 3:30 or 4, it's to handle league business. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good to see y'all.
Just want you all to know, I'm not the one talking about the length of the meeting today.
Yeah.
I saved mine until I know it's going to be short. So I'm just saying. And yes, I would look forward to heading to DC to, no, you have to get going earlier to prepare things for when we come, Mr. President. But look forward to engaging with our federal leaders this week. And I can assure you there are going to be some spirited conversations, but necessary conversations in Washington. I will be leaving. I'm going to be in DC for 2 reasons. I'll also be with the Yale Mayors and CEOs Summit. Part of the folks who will be, I don't have it with me, but part of the folks that will be meeting with the Secretary of Defense, the FBI Director, the President and CEO of Chase Bank, members of the President's Cabinet, and some federal members of Congress. It's going to be a interesting gathering. So next week probably be a little stressful because the many diverse conversations that we'll be having. I think I have a few friends in the audience today, and Durhamites who are directly impacted by the cuts from Washington. This is going to be an interesting time moving forward. I know I've received my share of opinions online for speaking out. So let me just say on the record, I will always stand up for what's right. I'll always speak up on the behalf of our residents here in Durham. And what the fight that you all live on a daily basis and how these things are impacting you all directly is what encouraged me and give me the courage to not back down. So to the state senators who decided to make me the topic of discussion in North Carolina, all the way to the folks in Washington that said I'm too big for my britches, welcome to the Bull City. I just got back from DA, Durham Academy. And colleagues, I did something that I've never done. I opened the agenda up and I had the students partake in reading over some agenda items. And we discussed the resolution that we're going to be discussing today. And after listening to those students go through this resolution and give me feedback on what they were put in and how they would, change wording, it gives me hope for the future. Now, I can't put everything they want in there because these kids are ready for war. They are ready. So I was like, well, we're going to take this as practice. I can't go that far, guys. It felt so good to have high school students wanting to be a part of real issues. And they are paying attention. They are paying attention, and that just gives me so much hope. So shout out to DA, Durham Academy. We talked about the resolution, we talked about the agenda items, and we talked about an upcoming development case that we continued recently, which is impacted right across from their school. And that was a beautiful conversation. One of the students said, well, I'm really concerned about, she said, my grandmother told me something about what type of people would move there. And she said, well, I want all people to be able to live here. And I want to do what I can. Maybe I should apply for the planning commission because I want to do what I can to make sure that anyone who needs a house or a roof over their head, they can get it. And so she and her grandmother had this conversation. She brought that conversation to class about this development case. I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. And when we talked about, just the overall impact of housing and how supply and demand works, how zoning works, and how, they're trying to get infrastructure so they can safely walk and run around their school. It was just a beautiful conversation. I just enjoy engaging with our youth that way. Speaking of which, youth.gov on the federal websites have been removed. So we will continue to push forward here at the local level in creating standards and guidelines of how we can best serve our children, our young people. So as I've said before, let's look inward, not upward, and control what we can control, and that's how we interact with one another. What day do we have? Tuesday. Okay. All right. I have a hat on. Some of us received a
I was gonna
visit.
say, I saw that and I was kind of jealous actually.
Yeah, some of us were here to receive a visit from the commanding officer of the USS North Carolina Virginia class. And these are active duty officers, and they gave us pieces of the wood from inside the submarine. And I just talked about what they're doing. I am, as mayor of the city, looking for ways that I can work with the current administration and Congress. And one of those is workforce development. The military industry is looking to hire 250,000 people to help build ships and submarines. And there's a lot of money out there available for that. I think that is a workforce development area that we can really hone into. I look forward to working with our partners, Durham Tech, surrounding institutions on how we can benefit from those investments. And lastly, again, I know there's a lot happening out here from the EPA to NPR to Amtrak to FHI, RTI, NIH. There are lots, and I know whatever cuts are coming from the federal government, they tend to look down and try and cut down when we should be looking up and down and around. So I'm all about efficiency, but not at the cost of being reckless and irresponsible and how it can hurt people. With that being said, we're going to continue to do what we can do here to take care of one another. And yeah, let's just make sure we're taking care of each other, folks. With that being said, let's get to this agenda. I see a lot of college students in the audience today. Do we have special guests here? A lot of you guys came in a big group. Do we have a class here? What class is that? Segregation and education. Beautiful. Thanks for being civically engaged and coming to the city council meeting. Pay close attention. And if you have any questions, we can talk afterward. All right. All right. Priority items. Mr. Manager.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. The city manager's office has one priority item this afternoon, and that is to report that for agenda item number 10, the 2024 Equal Business Opportunity Program Annual Report, there will be a presentation made during the work session for that item. That's all we have. Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk. Madam Attorney.
Do you want to vote on the manager's item?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the manager's priority items.
So moved.
Been moved and properly second. All in favor? All right, all opposed. All right, good. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good to see you. The city attorney's office has one priority item as well. There is a request to hold a closed session, that council convene a closed session at the end of all regular business today, and that is pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A6, and it's to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, and/or fitness of an administrative employee who reports to the city administration.
Thank you. We can go ahead and approve that.
You
now.
can, if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to proceed to closed session at the end of business. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got my board, committee, and commission task force report. The Durham City County Appearance Commission appointment for the 3 nominations, they are going to Quentin Holloway, Nikki Nicole Miles, and Allison P. Steele. For the nomination to the Workers' Rights Commission, under the category of diverse backgrounds, the nominee is Brianne Morel. Related to the Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee appointment and the category of youth, Clark R. Sangando. And the last item, the Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority mayoral appointment is Nana Asante Smith, and that's the end of the report.
Thank you so much. At this time, I will read the administrative consent items. Right, number 1, approval of city council minutes. Number 2, Durham City County Appearance Commission appointments. Number 3, Durham Workers' Rights Commission. Number 4, Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee appointment. Number 5, Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority mayoral appointment. Number 6, amendment number 1, contract number 18421 with United Minority Contractors of North Carolina Incorporated for Minority Women Business Enterprise Workforce, Section 3, and Davis Bacon Consulting Services.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to pull that one. I just want to say I appreciate Deputy City Manager Chadwell and the staff for pulling together additional information I requested on that one. I am continuing to work with the Deputy City Manager because I want to understand more, given the total amount of minority contracting, why the number of Durham firms there is still relatively small, and what are we doing to sort of increase that pipeline? I know that's not an easy or an immediate answer or solution, but I think it's really critical as we build this economy that we're thinking about how we build a base of minority contractors that can be involved in these contracts we're issuing. So I'll continue working with the Deputy City Manager on that, but I appreciate the additional, again, information that you've shared to you and your staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all staff for being involved with that. Number 7, ordinance amending the bylaws of the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. Number 8, just real quick, I'm not going to pull number 7, but that was a request from the members of that. And while, diversity, equity, and inclusion is on the attack, I think that it's important that we make sure that we are being equitable in the work that we do here locally. So I'm supportive of this. Number 8, opioid settlement funds request for proposals.
I'd like to pull that one.
Number 9, general obligation parks, streets, and sidewalks bond series 2025. Number 10, 2024 Equal Business Opportunity Program, EBOP annual report presentation and update. Be a presentation. Number 11, lease of a portion of Duke Park, parcel 109272 to Durham Bicycle Cooperative.
I don't want to pull that one. I just want to say that I'm excited that use continues.
It's a great organization, and so I'm so proud that we're supporting their work.
Yep, go get your bikes fixed there. Number 12, Keep Durham Beautiful 2024 annual report. Number 13, condemnation action to obtain 1 area of fee simple and 2 easements at 400 Marine Road for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvements Project. Number 14, contract with Gets Incorporated for Birchwood Park Public Art Project using equitable and green infrastructure EGI funds. Number 15, contract with CMTA of Kentucky Incorporated for enhanced commissioning services of the City of Durham, for the City of Durham Fire and Durham County Emergency Management Services EMS Station 19 project. Number 16, condemnation action to obtain one area of fee simple and 2 easements at 1315 and 1401 Marine Road for the bicycle and pedestrian improvements project. Number 17, human resources consultant on-call provider list.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull that.
Number 18, Durham Human Relations Commission, 2024 annual report. Number 19, Mayor's Hispanic Committee, Mayor's Hispanic Latino Committee, 2024 annual report. Number 20, contract ST 335, street repairs and repaving, 2025. Number 21, contract ST 336, pavement preservation, 2025.
I'd like to pull that.
Oh, enthusiasm. Number 22, amendment number 1 to ST 329C, pavement management services, 2024. Number 23, contract SW 100, sidewalk repairs, 2024 bond.
Just good news. Bond funds being used. It's
Mhm.
great.
I would like to pull that. I just have one brief question.
23.
Yeah, 23. Number 24, supplemental agreement number 4 to master agreement number 18909 with Kittelson and Associates Incorporated for feasibility study of Duke and Gregson streets.
Pull that one.
Number 25, supplemental agreement number 4 to master agreement number 18919 with Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated for design of Horton Road multi-use path and sidewalk gaps. TIP BL 0063. Number 26, Federal Transit Administration, Section 5310, American Rescue Plan Act Grant Project Ordinance for Dialysis Transportation. Number 27, service contract for Vanguard Utility Service Incorporated for the larger meter inspection, testing, and minor repair services project.
Pull that one.
Number 28, contract amendment 2 to professional engineering services, contract number 18079 with Highfield Infrastructure Engineering PC for the fiscal year 21 lift station improvements project. Number, okay, we have budget management services here. Number 29, public hearing on fiscal year 25-26 budget and fiscal year 26-31 capital improvement plan. We have zoning map change, Chin Page Road Apartments, zoning map change, number 31, Pickett Apartments, number 32, consolidated annexation, 1012 Valmet Drive.
Mr. Mayor, point of inquiry. I think a resident pulled number 31. Madam Attorney,
You're correct.
it's a public hearing for Monday night, but is it in order to have that pulled for public comment today from a resident?
Residents can speak on any item that they choose to speak on, but
Sure.
those comments will not be part of the public hearing record, obviously.
Got you. 31, then we have a resident that's requested 31 be pulled.
Yeah. Actually, number 27, is that a resource person? Yeah, that's a resource. 31 is pulled, I have 33.
Yeah.
Okay. 32, consolidated annexation, Central Pavement Drive, and supplemental items. Number 33, joint resolution calling for the immediate lifting of the stop work order on foreign assistance programs and the reopening of the United States Agency for International Development. And I'll pull that.
Best speakers for that.
Yep. All right. That is our agenda with items 8, 17, 24, 23, and 27.
21.
I'm sorry.
And 30.
Can you read those again? Just to
Mayor
confirm.
Pro Tem, could you read those out?
Absolutely. I have 8, 17, 21, 23, 24, 27, and 31. Do you concur, Mr. Manager?
Yes.
All right. And we do have a
Correct.
citizens matter as well.
And a presentation item 10.
All right, sounds good. Councilmember Caballero's handwriting looked like mine for a second, so couldn't read it. All right. So let me go up to Citizens Matter. Mr. DeWarren Langley is who I have online here. Mr. Langley, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. You have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Great. Thank you for the warm introduction and welcome. My name is DeWarren Langley. I serve as the volunteer executive director of the Charles Hamilton Houston Foundation that fosters the academic leadership and professional development of boys and young men of color. Our mission is to provide a comprehensive continuum of strategy-centered, skill-based, and career-focused programs, services, and mentorship that go beyond theoretical knowledge, emphasizing a practical and strategic approach to prepare our boys and young men for academic success and success in the competitive workforce. I wanted to share an event that occurred on Saturday since it didn't make any of the local news broadcasts. The 2025 Boys of Color Power Academy Pathways of Opportunity, where leaders emerge resilient. The theme was sharpening minds, igniting brilliance, and building resilience. We had over 60 boys of color attend that event, where 23 were on the AB honor roll and 7 were on the A honor roll. The key learning objectives for this event was to develop a growth mindset for them to embrace resilience, learn from setbacks, and persist through challenges to develop mental fortitude and academic success, to strengthen their self-identity and confidence, to cultivate self-awareness, cultural pride, and authentic spaces for them to feel empowered and confident to express themselves, enhance their emotional intelligence by building self-regulation skills, fostering healthy relationships, and managing emotions, and most importantly, building strong networks to support themselves. Participants engaged in dynamic sessions focused on identity, leadership, and resilience. Through interactive workshops and other opportunities, we were able to provide a space for them to feel inspired, supported, and empowered to become future leaders and change makers. Our keynote speaker was Mr. Kamal Bell, who's the founder and farmer at Sokofa Farms, which is a multifaceted agricultural entity dedicated to addressing food insecurity in underserved communities. He shared his journey in entrepreneurship and education, inspiring them to develop blueprints to forge their own path to success. Our workshop facilitator was Dr. DeLeon Gray, who is the founder and CEO of Black and Belonging, a platform dedicated to fostering inclusive school environments. We also had a special welcome and speaking from Dr. Anthony Lewis, the superintendent of Durham Public Schools. The Power Academy is more than just an event. It is continuing investment to equip boys of color with the knowledge, confidence, and mentorship needed to excel in every aspect of their lives. We're committed to fostering a courageous and empowering environment where boys can thrive academically, personally, and within their community. This academy was the third year. We were fortunate enough to have last year Mayor Leonardo Williams to serve as our keynote speaker, where
Thank you, Mr.
initially he
Langley.
was scheduled for a short period, but through his engagement, the
Thank
board
you.
had it there much longer. But this
Thank
is
you,
an
Mr.
event that
Langley.
is, excuse me?
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Right. That's all I have for Citizens Matters. Mayor Pro Tem, you can remind me of which one.
Yes, sir. We have pulled item number 8. Councilmember Cook, I believe, pulled it.
All right. On you, Councilmember Cook. Yeah.
Tim Flora, Finance Director. I'm going to turn it over to our resident expert, our senior analyst, Julia Brenneman, who has worked very closely with the City Attorney's Office on this, so she can probably speak to it better than I can.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hi. I just would like a little bit of a fill-in on the chronology, because I know that there were funds that we ended up receiving more funds than we thought, and there was maybe a reissuance of the RFP, but I was just wondering if you could walk me through the chronology in terms of when the RFPs went out. And then also if you could talk a little bit about the rubric for scoring the RFPs that came in, because I know that there were several that came in, even though I know we're going to fund more than the 2 that are listed here, but if you could just talk about those as well.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks.
So, yes, the RFP went out towards the end of last year. And when it closed, we ended up having 18 proposals given to us. And so our review committee, which comprised of myself, Tim Flora, Deputy City Manager Winbush, and Fallon Thompson in participatory budgeting reviewed all 18 proposals, and they were based on description of the project, population need, target population, the overarching goals, sustainability, community partners, organizations, background and experience, and then their overall budget. And so you were right, as more funding has come in, that's why we decided to do this RFP process, and more settlements may continue to close, giving more money, but this is what we have guaranteed to us right now. And so that is how we came up with the numbers that we're working on, and we split it up into 3-year periods so that way it would be manageable with the upcoming possibility of additional funds. Did I answer your questions?
Yes, you did. So when and if the additional money comes in, did we evaluate all of those 18 proposals and we're going to go back to that list, or will we be reissuing RFPs? How does that process work?
So that has not been determined yet. It could go either way. We could go back to the original list, or we could continue to put out another RFP. It kind of depends on the timeline of when that additional funding may come. Like I said, right now we're hoping to do 3-year increments. And so hopefully in 3 years, we would go back out with a new RFP and kind of redo this whole process again, getting a better gauge of what our community partners have, what programs are going out there, and what the needs of the city are right now.
Those are all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, Mr. Mayor, next is 17, and that was pulled by me.
Good afternoon, Jim Reingruber, Assistant Director with Human Resources.
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Good to see
Thanks.
you.
Real quick, just
Okay.
for my own kind of a knowledge base. So there's no outlay of money yet attached to this contract,
Correct.
correct? So we're contractually comprising a list of potential vendors in the case we should need them?
Correct. Basically, this serves kind of two purposes. One, by executing these agreements, and these aren't contracts, they're agreements, we're able to kind of collect all the, I don't know what you would call it, boilerplate stuff up front. So we vet the insurance requirements and make sure that people are authorized to do business in North Carolina and all that. So it helps streamline that procurement process. And then it also allows HR to kind of be a resource for departments who they have a need, and we're able to say, okay, we have this list that you can choose people from.
Sure. Do these agreements preclude us from looking at other vendors in the?
Not necessarily. We would encourage departments to go to this list first.
Mhm.
There could be services there could be gaps that, departments are free to go through the procurement process for other vendors, but this list is designed to make things easier. So in most cases, we think departments
Sure.
are going to use this.
Why does this rise to the level of council consideration?
So technically it doesn't. The dollar thresholds are not likely to rise to that threshold, but I think it's part of the practice we started is sort of just really being transparent with this and wanted to make sure that these agreements are a little bit broad, and so this is kind of the safer way to do it. Let's put it that way.
No, transparency is our friend. Appreciate it. That's all I had. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, barring any other questions from colleagues, next item is number 21 that was pulled by Councilmember Baker. Council members Baker and Cook, forgive me.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. So this is pavement preservation. So this is using crack seal, surfacing, cape seal, and asphalt rejuvenation. Can you just, for the layman, explain a little bit about this is different from a full-on resurfacing project? Can you just, for the layman, explain a little bit about what this does, maybe how much longer this preserves asphalt, and kind of cost savings around doing it this way, and how long this can preserve asphalt for?
Good afternoon, Tasha Johnson, Public Works Assistant Director. Also here with me, Clint Blackburn, who is over our newly combined project delivery and design team. So pavement preservation is a combination of treatment. We like to refer to it as doing the right treatment to the right road at the right time. The order of magnitude, just talking broadly, is about a 1 to 10. So if it costs $10 to pave a mile of road, which it doesn't, but if it costs $10 to pave a mile of road, we could preserve that mile of road for $1. And we could extend the life of that road, multiple iterations, and extend the life cycle of that road, keeping it at a higher level of service for a longer period of time at less overall cost for the life cycle of that road. Does that answer?
Sure. I noticed on the map that this is going to be applied on some brand new streets. Can you just talk a little bit about, so the streets have just been paved and is that something that we wanted to wait a couple years after they were paved, or is that something that we usually want immediately after they're paved? How does that work?
So the idea is to keep the good roads in good condition. And so we would do treatment sooner than later, and we want to, and we're doing a combination of treatments. For example, a rejuvenator, you would do 1 to 2 years after the road has been paved. A chip seal or a micro surfacing, you might do 5 to 7 years, maybe 10 years, depending on how the road wears after it's been paved. The premise is to keep the good roads in good condition longer, rather than waiting for them to deteriorate to a point where it's more costly to repair them.
And some of these really are, I mean, this is some of the brand new neighborhoods that have been constructed. Do we ever get any revenue or payment or fee in lieu from some of the developers out there to help pay for some of the rejuvenation that happens almost immediately after the construction of the streets?
Before we accept these roads for maintenance, we make sure they are at an acceptable level of service before we assume maintenance of them. And so that is at the contractor's or developer's cost.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cook? She had pulled it as well.
Mic's off.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Actually, Councilmember Baker asked almost all of my questions. I was just curious if the decision on which roads are repaved is one that's made in-house, because I think this contract is only for the actual, or not repaved, excuse me, preserved. This contract is for the actual preservation process with slurry pavers. Are the decisions which roads to do, is that all made in-house, or do we contract out for that as well?
A combination. We have ultimate decision, but we do use a consultant to help us identify the roads and do the prep work and establish the list. But the city actually vets that list before we determine which roads will be paved.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
I'm sorry, Clint would like to add something as well.
Clint Blackburn, Public Works. Mr. Baker, or sorry, Councilmember Baker, when you say newly roads that are just accepted, it's important to know that a lot of those roads are 2, 3, sometimes they're several years old before we accept them. So when you say when they're fresh, brand new roads, they're not quite brand new. So microsurfacing, we're wanting to hit it around 5 years, 5 to 6 years, depending on the program. So that's why you're seeing that. They're not necessarily brand new roads though. So, thank you.
All right, any other questions on that? The next item, 23. Chelsea Cook, Councilmember Cook.
Yes, this is such a quick question and actually might be for Tim, but I'm happy to pose it. My question is, we are already contracting work out for the 2024 bond. Also in this agenda, we had a final approval to send the bond out. I don't know where the item went, but my question is, how are we able to do this contract out before having having sold the debt, I guess. You understand my question, right?
Yes,
Timeline.
yes.
Okay.
So you actually passed the budget for this. And so the budget is the authority to begin the process. We don't necessarily have to have the funding in-house to do it. We know we're going to be getting the funding. So as long as the CIP, the budget has been approved, that gives you the authority to spend.
So help me understand, because I think we're going to do for all of these different ones that were covered by the street and sidewalk bond. And for those of you listening, I'm talking specifically about the bond that we just passed by referendum. So when we put up collateral for this bond, we put it, or essentially the same thing. We are basing the bond on the structures that we build. And so for some of them, we've identified and we already have permission to do like the sidewalk repair. These are sidewalks that we already maintain. And so we don't have to get any additional permissions or do anything in order to do the repairs. We're able to start those immediately. For some of the streets and sidewalks, we're not able to start those immediately. Does it matter when we sell the bonds if we have identified exact streets and sidewalks?
No, the actual bond, the financing piece is completely separate from the actual construction piece. And so, so these are general obligation bonds. So these are not supported by the infrastructure. They're supported by the taxing authority, which is, but no, those are two separate items. Once you approve a budget to begin these process, you can begin the process. The cash flow and all that, all those things that we in finance do behind the curtain, all that, we just work out the details.
Okay. I mean, I assume even when you have to have some sort of plan, right? Like we did this.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a resolution today to begin the process. So it was a $200 million bond. And so we are going out for the first tranche, which is $100 million for the first tranche, based upon our discussions with the project managers from the departments on what we can get done. And so really what we want to do is we don't want to go and get all of the money. We want to we want the money to be in our hands when we actually need to spend it. And so we're able to use reserves, available reserves, and then we just supplant those funds with the bond proceeds.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful.
Thank you so much. Right, next item is number 24, Councilmember Rist. Hello, Director Egan.
Welcome. Well, first of all, thanks so much for this. I know we've all of us in the council have been getting numerous emails about crashes on Duke and Gregson. And I know that also your department came out with a new high-under network, which shows this is one of the corridors in the high-under network. So I'm really glad they were moving ahead with this feasibility study. My question, just looking at the scope of work, so I just want to understand, like, this is the feasibility part, but it's also getting into potentially some options, right? And I guess my question is like how broad are the options that they may be evaluating or considering? Is a two-way conversion, is that sort of like the answer, or is that sort of like one option? Like, how wide is the set of potential solutions to the safety concerns on Duke and Gregson?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. Sean Egan, Director of Transportation. So we're going into this with an open mind in terms of the alternatives. For Mangum and Roxborough, when we got to the end of our feasibility, we determined that the two-way was the best way forward, and that's the recommendation, and that contract to begin that design was awarded by council on Monday night. In this case, we're going to be looking at a series of different options and alternatives that will include two-way, but will include other configurations as well. I was in downtown Philadelphia in October. They have a grid of one-way pairs, but the travel lane, there's one travel lane with either a bicycle facility or a parking lane on either side. It looks like they used to be 3-lane streets, but what the city did was to find ways to introduce some, we call it friction, and to reduce the number of lanes and then the width of lanes. And so it makes walking in Center City, Philadelphia, very pleasant because the traffic goes slowly and you feel safe crossing the street. It effectively reduces the crossing distances, having either a bicycle facility on one side and then a parking lane on the other side. So you're really only thinking about one lane of traffic. But we'll be looking at other options as well. We're starting analysis right now for a bus rapid transit project, for example. So for the buses to get from Durham Station to West Main Street and proceed toward East Campus and 9th Street, they'll need to use one of these roads, most likely. So maybe there's a transit, red painted, dedicated bus lane on a portion of one of these roadways. So we're going to be looking at all different needs for the facilities and different users and use types, but ultimately with the goal of reducing speeds and making it safer, reducing the number and severity of crashes. So that safety is going to be the most critical, but also looking at a variety of different uses and needs for the roadways.
Right, that's very exciting. I appreciate that. And I guess we've talked in the past about Vision Zero. Is your sense like if we don't correct the safety concerns on Duke and Gregson, can we ever meet our Vision Zero goals?
There's a definition of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I think it's difficult to expect a different result unless we make really significant changes to these roadways, and particularly our focus, and we'll be coming back in 2 weeks on the 20th with a Vision Zero action plan presentation to talk about the high injury network. 10% of our roads are responsible for 74% of fatalities and serious injuries. And Duke and Gregson are prominently featured. Roxborough is also prominently featured. Those are the areas where we really need to make significant changes to the design of the roadway if we're going to see safety improve.
Thank you.
That's a long way of saying no. So diplomatic. Mr. Manager.
I just wanted to add some context, though. I appreciate Sean's response, and I think it's honest, but I would also say I wouldn't want to presume the answer to that question until we finish a feasibility study and look at the data. I think obviously Sean has a lot of understanding of what we've seen on that corridor, but it might be presumptuous today to have a definitive answer to that question. Let's let the data lead us, and certainly we'll be transparent with what our studies find.
Yeah, I guess the point is if we don't do anything, it's going to be hard to change outcomes, right?
Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you, and I'm excited to see this moving forward. This is not just the highest injury network for the city of Durham, it's for our entire TPO region. So we actually have lots of data on what's going on in that corridor that is several years old at this point. I just want to share that, however, I think what folks really want is a response. So if that means piloting some ideas, if that means thinking out of the box to get something on the ground faster, I just want to put that out there that's our burden as a city, regardless of whether it's, we all know it's an NCDOT road. We know that there's sometimes challenges when it's not our road, what we can and can't do. But I think that especially the residents who live there, I mean, I live pretty close by. There's a neighborhood, signs up and down these corridors right now that say slow down. We've had some pretty terrible wrecks, including a school bus hitting a house in the last couple months. And this is a long-standing problem. So I think it's on us to be as responsive as we possibly can, given, all of the additional pain points. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, and then just saying from my perspective as a single council member, the faster the better. And if that means that, okay, the two-way conversion is just infeasible for the short term or whatnot, it doesn't, then what is feasible? And so I think that it's really important that we have that lens of responsiveness and quickness versus, it's the ideal thing that's going to get, yeah, sure, we can move towards that. But it's, in my opinion, it's more important to show that we are doing something for an injury or a network that is for many years been a very, very dangerous set of roads. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, I would just add that part of the feasibility analysis is looking at things like cost and schedule and what alternative provides the best value. And what we've heard from the community is a real sense of urgency to move forward with this work. So cost and schedule will certainly be very serious considerations in the study.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, also, thanks for those comments, Councilmember Caballero. And we have met, as you know, with Becca Gallus, who's the engineer for Division 5. To me, it's not an either or, right? I think we can do both. I think I'd love to see us do something now to sort of show there's movement, because we know that the feasibility is going to take a year and they'll be designed after that. So it's going to take, if we do, whatever the long-term solution is there, it's going to take several years. So I'd love to see it both and. Thank you.
Any other comments with us? All right, I just want to say thank you for using Philadelphia as an example, because they've done some pretty innovative things with they had a lot of wide streets, multi-lane, 5-6 lanes, and I think they used outdoor dining for one lane, and then they used another lane for whatever to just really reduce the speed. And actually the outdoor dining beautified the Rittenhouse Square, that area. It's just absolutely gorgeous. All right, number 27, Councilmember Cook.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I am Lisa Mitchell with the Department of Water Management, and this project's in my purview.
Great, thank you. This is going to be really quick, but what I'm reading from this memo, the things that we're looking for here, inspection and minor repairs and testing, do seem to be things that we also do regularly as a city. So can you explain why we've outsourced this, or at what point we need to outsource it?
Yeah, this is outsourced really just due to labor restraints that we have in-house with our existing crews, and the sort of specialty nature of these large meters and the specialized equipment that's needed to calibrate them that we don't possess in-house.
And are these slots that in terms of the labor issue, are they slots that are just not full, or we just have folks sitting in those spots and we just do not have the capacity for this?
Yeah, I'll pass that question on to our director, Don Gruley, who can speak closer to more of our labor issues.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Lisa doesn't have as much historical knowledge as I do. We have typically always tested the 2-inch meters and less, and we've always done the larger meters by having a contractor come in for the reasons that Lisa mentioned.
And can you just, I might say in the memo, but can you talk to me just really quickly about how many meters or percentage-wise fall in the 2 inches or less and then the greater?
We have roughly about 2,500 1.5 to 2 inch meters that need to be tested. The 1 inch meters and the 5 inch meters, usually we just replace those because they're not really repairable. Where the 1 inch and the 2 inch and larger, but the 1.5 and the 2 inch meters, we have the capabilities to do them in house. The larger meters, the 3, 4, 5, and 6 inch meters, we don't have the capacity to do that.
How many of those?
Well, there's about 500
Okay.
that are in this contract.
Okay. I think those are all my questions. Thanks.
Mr. Greeley, are those larger meters associated with larger users, or that's simply an older technology, or what's
These are all of our large meters. User.
Okay, thanks.
Commonly referred to as our cash register, because we bill a lot of water out of these meters.
Right. Yeah. All right, next item is 31. This was pulled by a resident. And that resident's name is Betsy Ross. So, Ms. Ross, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I hear you with lots of reverb or feedback. Can you say something again, please? Hello? Ms. Ross?
Okay, I think I muted myself. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. So I do want to say that this item is on the agenda for our next general body meeting, which is the following, well, not this Monday, but the next March 17th. And your comments will be received today, but they won't be a part of the public hearing, the public hearing record. But we will hear them today. I just wanted to make you aware of that before you started.
Okay, well, thank you so much for letting me say a few things anyway, and I
Of course,
appreciate
you have 3
it.
minutes.
Okay, so this, it took a while for the council to understand that there was so much opposition to this because there are 3 large businesses within 600 feet of the proposed rezoning. And it took a while for the word to spread throughout the neighbors and park goers. And so I would like to, I guess, issue a complaint about that type of thing. And in this instance, and request that if this is, if the area needs to be increased in the future, if there, large parcels of land that are with businesses, so that the neighbors can understand what's going on quicker. And there's a good phrase, environmentally, think globally, act locally. You have over 1,000 citizens in Precinct 43 and other areas of Durham who are very concerned and strongly oppose a large development area of impervious surface at this location. Could we have a city and communal effort to keep the existing 2 houses, keep the former sausage plant and woodworking building for vocational training, add 10 to 14 eco-friendly owner-owned, perhaps habitat homes on the site? The city could work with Friends of Sandy Creek, concerned citizens, Durham Tech, Durham Cooperative Extension, and other organizations to assure that the Picketts and Coles have the same profit for their land that Ascension is offering. The tree canopy of 100-plus year oaks, magnolias, and pecans could be kept, and very little environmental impact to this area. And why not honor the Pickett family and all that they've done for Durham to name this Pickett Park? So that's what I have to say about it. And I kind of envision something really, really neat there, and something that could be super helpful to the community. And just, I love affordable housing. I'm all for it. And there's nothing between me and my house except for Durham Academy. And I'd be happy to have people who had affordable housing there. But I think it would be nice to have, rather than rental, to have owner occupied homes for them, which would build generational wealth for them as well. So I think that could be really, really great. And so, instead of doing something that's going to hurt our waterways and Jordan Lake, I thought that Durham had 16.5% of its water from Jordan Lake, but maybe that is an old figure and they've changed things. But even so, if we have, we need to care about our neighbors and their water, and maybe Durham may get water from
Thank
Jordan
you,
Lake.
Ms. Ross.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I do want to say, while we're on this topic, that I know my office has received quite a few calls from neighbors in this area. And I know there are a few folks taking issue with this item being on the agenda the same night as the budget hearing. And some believe that it was intentional to limit time. That is not how it works, trust me. There have been times where the city council has been here to 3 a.m. So the items are not placed on the agenda based on trying to manipulate time. It's based on schedule availability. We deal with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases. So to the public that has that concern, that is not the case. And I also want to be very clear, the city doesn't own this land. We are facilitating and sort of litigating this process between the owners and the community and what goes there, whether really it's about how much goes there, not what. So I want to be careful about, the expectations of what the city council can and cannot allow.
I understand. Thank you so much for all your good work over there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I spent time with the kids at DA this morning talking about this stuff as well. So thank you all for being great, engaged residents over there. All right. Number 10. That is our presentation. Yep, 2024 Equal Business Opportunity Program, EBOP Annual Report, presentation update that allocates 25 minutes. You don't have to take all 25 if you don't want it. While they're getting ready, I want to give a shout out to the Bull City Wood Shop. They had their gala last night, and I unfortunately missed it due to an unknown conflict that came up. But they've been doing great work over there, and I just want to shout them out for another great year.
Can you hear me? All right.
And now, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your patience with that. Good afternoon, Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, council members. I am Sheila Fawcett, the Deputy CFO.
Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Timothy Jackson, Finance, UBC Manager.
And we work with, of course, Tim Flora in the Finance Department. And the purpose, thank you. Today you will receive a presentation on our Equal Business Opportunity Program. I'm going to advance the slide there. All right, so we're going to provide you with an update on our EBOP performance in 2024 participation. Next slide. And so here's our agenda for today. We wanted to start with our policy adoption because the last time we were before you, you had the opportunity to see that draft policy. So we want to give you a status on that. We're going to go over the process improvements that we've had over the 2024 year. And part of those improvements is how we improved our RFP process, our data validation, and our performance measure. We're going to talk about our 2024 annual report and some of the data that's in that report. And we'll give you a short synopsis on our 2024 MedWeek celebration, and we'll give you an update on our disparity study. And after all of those things, we'll have, of course, we'll take questions at any time, but we'll have a question and answer period in the end. So I'm going to start off again with the adoption of the policy. In March of last year, you all saw that policy and you authorized our city manager to establish an EBOP implementation policy. And we want to let you know that that policy was finalized by our department. It was approved by the city manager in October of 2024, and it was adopted within a July 1, 2024 effective date. And again, that policy provides a greater flexibility for administering and improving our EBOP program. And it also contains detailed descriptions on EBOP administrative procedures. And an example of that is what our individual administrative departments, what they are responsible for as it relates to EBOP. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Timothy for a couple slides.
And so what you're looking at here is a slide on our equal business opportunity process improvements. This process, we looked at 2 user-centered designs, and we also had a coordinated engagement with our state department, the North Carolina hub office. And so when we started our user-centered design, what this is we'll actually look at the type of work that departments are doing, break those scopes of work down into feasible components, So that way minorities and women can actually bid on those particular projects. We also partnered with the North Carolina Hub Office for enhanced engagements. This way, the state supports what we do. They can help us advertise our solicitations and then invite us to different events across the state of North Carolina. Our request for proposals process. This is something we wanted to take a look at and see how could we incentivize, how could we get more participation in a proposal process. One of the things about proposals that a lot of you already know is there's an evaluation matrix portion. So we actually incentivize that portion by adding additional points for if you have an understanding of the Equal Business Opportunity Program. If you look over towards the right side, this is just a highlight snippet of one of the many examples of how you could incentivize an evaluation criteria. But what we did in item F here is if you have an understanding of our equal business opportunity policy, you get a total of 5 points. If you don't have an understanding, you don't get any points. And if you decide to utilize one underutilized business, you get 3 points. And if you utilize multiple minority and women, then you can get a maximum of 5 points. One other thing here is a lot of times in different projects, there may not always be a type of participation goal. That's okay, because what we do then is we ask for an outreach plan. Outreach plan simply says, how could you include minorities and women in this work that normally would be specialized? So we ask for outreach plan. And then lastly, we've adopted what we call a good faith efforts point system. So we said what we'll do here is if you can't make any participation goals, you can't do any kind of outreach plan, here's a point system. Out of 120 points, if you can submit documentation for these categories, you only need 50 points to show us that you really demonstrated a good faith effort, and we move it forward. Now, here's our data validation project, our process. It was really good. What you're looking at is we looked at all of the vendors that we have in our financial system, our database. And so the first thing we did was we had to verify that all the information profiles were up to date, essentially, that they had accurate information. As we did that, we noticed we had to work on duplicated information. We had to eliminate duplicate entries. We had to consolidate profiles because we realized that when you do this, it really maintains a clean database. And then finally, we wanted to position ourselves into the new ERP system that is coming to the city of Durham, our Oracle system. So system enhancements. And this is by upgrading the system to enhance reporting capabilities. We believe that this will foster better consistency across the vendor management process. And so here's a snapshot that you can see of our performance measures all the way to the left. Starting back in December of 2023, our database only contained 201 certified minority and women vendors. And so as we start implementing our validation process, we increased to 463 certified minority women businesses, and now we have approximately 470 as of June 30th of 2024. Here is the fiscal year 2024 annual report. We've included a link, a hyperlink. You guys can click into it and it will actually take you to the annual report. But this year's annual report, we highlighted employee spotlight. Myself as a new employee here at the city of Durham is there. Also, you can find out information about the participation status, shared process improvements, and then we know about the disparity study. And I'll turn the presentation back over to Sheila.
All right, so now we're going to talk about our prime contracting data. And so this is telling you specifically where we landed at the end of the fiscal year as it comes to our our prime contracting. So again, we are encouraged by our 2024 participation percentages. We exceeded the prime goal for MUBEs in professional services at 17%, and our goal is 8%. We had some participation in WBE prime professional services, and we do need to put a little more focus in that area. We met the prime goal for WBEs in goods, the goods category at 4%, and we had no MUBE prime participation for the goods category, and additional focus is needed in that area. And if you take a quick look at the charts for professional services and goods, the charts will show a notable improvement in participation when you compare our data from 2023 to 2024. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about our construction as well as our services area. We had 7% MUBE prime participation in construction, and the goal was 11%. We exceeded the prime goal for WBEs in construction at 19%, and the goal was 7%. We exceeded the prime goal for MUBEs in services at 8%, and our goal is 7%. Although we did not meet the goal for WBE in services, we did have increased participation. And if you review the charts for construction and services, the charts will show notable improvement in participation when compared to 2023. So now we're going to talk about our subcontracting numbers, and we are also encouraged by our 2024 percentages and participation. We ended the year at just 2% and 1% below our MUBE and WBE goals in construction. We exceeded the subcontractor participation goals for MUBE at 30% and WBEs at 16% in professional services. The goals for professional services are 8% and 6% respectively. As we did not meet each subcontracting goal, we had participation in 3 of the 4 categories with significant improvements in construction and in professional services. And this is a slide about our payments to MWBE subcontractors. And if you can't really tell them this, but we actually had an increase of more than $1 million in each category when compared to 2023. The chart on MWBE type shows each category, an increase in each category for all except for Hispanic, which had a small decline when we compare that to 2023. And we believe our efforts in data cleansing is a huge factor for the participation success over 2024. During our data validation project, as Timothy indicated in an earlier slide, we validated more than 400 vendors in our ERP system, and we made sure that they were certified so that we could calculate that and include that in our reporting as you see today. And we also believe that the change in our project strategy that Timothy outlined by us incentivizing projects when we don't or cannot actually place a goal on that particular project, we incentivize it through the solicitation process. And again, we truly believe that our efforts and our process improvements is what is a reflection of where we are today with the city when it comes to our EBOP program. So I'm going to turn it back over to Timothy, and he's going to talk about a couple other areas.
So this is a fun highlight area. Definitely, this was our Minority Enterprise Development Week. You all may know it as Med Week. And so what this event is, it's a celebration of achievements, contributions from minorities and women. It usually takes place around October. This past year, we teamed up with Durham County and we hosted this event together. Our theme was Solidifying Your Next. And so it occurred October 14th through the 17th. And this event consisted of celebrations such as a keynote speaker, you have panelists, network, luncheon, a business expo. There's another hyperlink here of a recap video that's really cool. Our communications department did that for us. So take a look if you get a chance. Now, this slide here, you've seen it before. Basically, what this is, it's the disparity study. We are currently now in process actively with the disparity study, but we wanted to just give you a few highlights of the background and quick demonstration of what the disparity study is. This study that we're going through is going to tell us whether we have inequities in our public procurement and contracting. It also is going to help us ensure that our race or gender-based programs can actually pass legal testing, which is strict scrutiny, compelling interest, narrowly tailoring programs. So it definitely does that for us. There's no court mandated period between different studies, but generally you would have a disparity study within 5 to 7 years. And so some of the things that they're going to look at during this study is going to be what kind of research are we doing? The scope of our research. What about our data? They're going to look at the condition of our data. How many different entities are actually involved in this particular disparity study? And so it'll last 1 year. Normally it lasts a whole year, and then we'll release all the results. The last 3 bullets here are just foundational information for disparity studies. We know that the notable case here, 1989 U.S. Supreme Court decision, City of Richmond versus Gregson. Out of that case, courts determined that there's legal requirements of compelling interest. You have to have compelling interest to be able to support any type of supplier diversity programs. And so the disparity study will definitely give you results to determine a compelling interest. And so here's the timeline. We're ahead greatly of this timeline. You guys have seen this, but we put out proposals in January. We've already had question and answer periods. And so our real goal here is to be able to get a recommendation in May, and then hopefully an award and issue a contract by June. And we're open for questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions, colleagues? Councilmember Cook.
Awesome. Thank you for this presentation. You've touched on a couple of the things I just want to delve a little bit more deeply into a couple of the ones that you listed. The first is that my recollection of feedback from the community was that the process was really convoluted, and that the information maybe was accessible, but people had trouble finding it, or maybe it was in different places. So I know you talked about redoing your process, and I heard you talk about the 1 through 5 boxes. Can you just talk about whether it's accessible, what it looks like from user interface when our folks are trying to participate with the program? Like, are they able to find the information needed? Have you gotten good feedback about that user interface and any improvements that you've seen there?
Yeah, awesome question, Council Cook. And actually, yes, I didn't want to go too deep for you all today. That's why we kept it highlight. But actually, we have additional partners specifically for that reason that you stated. We've teamed up with the Women's Business Center and also the Small Business Technology Center. So we host events through the year where community participants can come, and we actually break down and teach them how to bid and understand the city's proposals. And we also are open for any kind of questions during the solicitation period. Only time we cannot answer questions is once bids are due, because that's not proper. But yes, we have done that right now.
Awesome. That's so good to hear. Then, I mean, it seems like you said that the number of vendors that we have in the system have increased, and you also said that there has been some application shift. Can you just go into a little bit more detail about what the results are that you've seen, and how you maybe know that they're related to the process fixes that we did?
Yeah, with the city of Durham, first, what we had to do was we actually had a lot of participation already in our system. But the problem is you can't report on it if it's not succinct. So what we did, we said, well, let's just first scrub the data that we have to see if there's actually a problem. And as we begin to scrub that data, we found that we have a lot more certified firms than we originally had.
And have you gotten feedback from, I mean, you said that you've done some community engagement. Can you just talk a little bit about like the feedback you've gotten from the businesses that are now participating?
Yeah, one of the recent projects, I hope I don't get ahead of myself, but coming before you soon is going to be the water intake project. And what we've done is hosted outreaches. I think we've done 3 outreach events over at our Miss Lake facility. We've had overwhelming minority businesses there, and we're actually breaking down the project and we're highlighting and identifying for them, here are areas of need. Here's where you can bid on the city's project. Here are our city's water management department. Here's the city resources, and any help you need, please let us know. So far, Council Cook, they seem engaged.
Yeah, that's really, really cool to hear. And then I heard y'all say just at one point, I think Sheila said it, that there were a couple areas where we want to be working a little bit more. So do y'all have plans in place to sort of address those areas? And what are they?
Yes, we do. So what you want to do is what we've learned to do is, for instance, say for instance, if women are not really getting opportunities for professional services, and traditionally there may be goals on both sides. Well, then you want to look at where your deficiencies are and really engage contractors. How can you participate? And here's a recommended list of women's businesses for this particular work. So we're taking more of a hands-on, really in-deep approach to trying to fix the issue.
Well, I feel like over the span of the year, it has been just drastic improvements, and I really want to applaud y'all because I know that this was a lot of work that y'all went in to do, and that there's a lot of information here anyway, and it's hard to work with a lot of different contractors and folks in the community, and of course everyone has their interests, and I just want to applaud y'all because I think it sounds like you really like tackled all of these specific issues, really consolidated things and made it more efficient. And I'm hopeful to see, it sounds like the data is already supporting the changes that y'all are made are helping, and I'm excited to see it continue to grow. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Baker.
Just want to say I'll echo the comments and appreciate the questions by Councilmember Cook. And I'll just say thank you for coming in for the presentation. This is really important work. I agree with comments about responding to input by Councilmember Cook. And yeah, keep up the good work.
I don't have anything to add. I just want to say thank you so much for the presentation today.
Any other questions?
Yes, Ms. Lissette, Mr. Jackson, thanks for the presentation as well. Yeah, I note I know you came before us back in last spring, right? And the data here is really appreciated. The sort of like the level and the amount of data and the sort of like the depth that you can go is really appreciated. So thanks for that. My only question is, and you noted where we're meeting the goals in different professional services and so forth. Where we're not meeting the goals, like what's it going to take to meet those goals? And what do you need from the council to help you and other folks around the city meet those goals?
Take that one.
And again, I know this is, as we talked about before with on the housing side, I know that this is not an issue that we can solve tomorrow. It's easy, but this is a long-term thing, but it's so important for our city's economy. So yeah, what'll it take and how can we help support that?
Really, the simplest answer is they love seeing you guys come to our events. Seriously, the more events that you come to, that they actually see city officials there. When the mayor dances on stage and is like, "I love my city," it actually makes our job much easier. So, Council Rice, if you could just come and just support us, let us do the hard work because we know the community. They have an expectation, but really want to see you guys at the events.
I don't mind having a good time. Yeah, she had one. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. This is more workforce, but like with the folks who are doing like the folks who may be struggling a little bit to, and I get the good faith effort, are we doing a good job? And this is coming up because of conversations we're having with recently arrived refugees and skill sets that we know those folks have. And we're struggling to make sure that folks see the breadth of talent in Durham and that maybe in parts of the community that they are not even aware exist. And so I really want to emphasize, and I see to Councilmember Rist's point, I remember when we had this last spring and the amount of data that the fact that you all went back to look at what we already had was a huge, that's awesome because we were already doing good work and we're just getting better at this. And I remember former Mayor Schul would ask often around contracts, are we meeting our goals? Because we weren't meeting our goals very often then. And we've seen that improvement and trends within our own agenda items. So I think my ask is really to encourage businesses to really mine what talent there is out in Durham, because there are lots of folks out there that may just need that extra support. And again, going back to that connectivity, back to where's the labor and how do we ensure that we're being that good bridge between businesses and where they can get qualified folks. That's all. Thank you.
Just one more point on that. So appreciate your comments about showing up, and we're happy to show up. Just because I'm wondering, for example, on like services where we hit the minority business goal, but not the women business goal. So just showing up, again, we're going to do that, but I'm guessing there may be more than that, right?
And what we are doing is having more outreach events. For example, we had a Hispanic outreach event earlier this year, and we partnered with a minority, and we had a very good feedback and a very good outreach. So we're taking a hands-on approach. We're also trying to go through our database, and we're looking at any minority vendors that are not certified. And this is part of this strategic plan to reach out to those and get them certified. And again, we believe that it's there, but we can't count you in our program unless you're actually certified in our system based on our ordinance today. So that, again, it's more that outreach is what we're doing to get us there.
And that outreach, that's sort of to build to build your set of folks, right? I'm also wondering about pipeline. Like, how do we build a deeper pipeline?
And I'll say too, council members, one of the factors contributing to some of that non-participation is if you have participants in the city of Durham who can't understand English, they don't know what to do with the solicitation. So we have strategic engagements in someone's original language. I believe the more that we do that, the numbers will take care of themselves because as Council Cavallero said, yeah, she's right. You got a very talented pool, but there may be some language barriers. So the more creative we come with strategic outreaches, I think hopefully we could get some participation.
I'm being annoying, I'm sorry. So, and this goes back to like with Latino orgs or businesses in particular, like I know there's folks who have gotten certified over the years and that kind of also like advisory piece, like asking businesses who have gone through the certification or maybe don't have that language barrier, they're bicultural, they're bilingual. And so encouraging other smaller entities and you're kind of like, well, my friend did it and they said it was worth it. And so I'm going to do it, right? And it is about that. Again, that relational piece of, okay, it's worth my time, this extra effort, because it is effort. If you're a woman-owned business or a minority-owned business, it's not easy process to get through all of the paperwork and the credentialing. And so relying again on the folks who you all already have relationships with, if they're willing to be kind of those ambassadors for the program as well, I think that we would get a lot of success, and I think folks would be eager to be helpful because it is. It's good for your business to be able to access government contracts.
Thank you, colleagues. Some really excellent engagement. Deputy Chief Fawcett, it's good to see you. Thank you for this incredible work you do for us. And to Timothy, you said you haven't been with us long, but had you not said that, we wouldn't be able to tell. You're doing really important work. Really, your composure and your presence and your command of your subject knowledge when you're before us is just evident that this was a good hire. So thank you for all you do, man, and continue to do this important work. I'm encouraged by the upward incline in certified vendors. Listen, this work is not easy. We basically asked your department to solve over 100 years of segregation and discrimination and disinvestment. So I'm allowing a very wide berth for success in this department because I know how just deep the hole is. The number for every vendor that we get on our list, I think about the number of businesses that have gone out of business, lack of capacity, lack of connection. We're battling against 100 years of cronyism, essentially, of folks sharing within their network how to get into the pipeline. So just keep doing the work, keep battling along. Speaking of battling, your work now is being undertaken in a very hostile environment, incredibly hostile environment. I'm anticipating any day direct inquiries to come, not from Washington, but from Raleigh, about our work in this area. So I say that to say the secret that's not so secret. We may need to have some conversations about nomenclature. We may need to have some conversations about like underutilized businesses. And folk may still want to interpret that as certain ways, but this is so critical to our values. Councilmember Riss, you're right, it's critical to our economy, but it is work that's being attacked. It's work is under attack. So you've got the added burden of dealing with the historical challenges of this kind of work and this renewed kind of hostility toward this work in our modern context. So you're earning every cent. It's not easy. And thank you so much for the work. And again, I'm encouraged by the certified vendor upward incline in certified vendors that we're seeing actual empirical documented successes. So we'll keep plugging at it. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. Just want to echo some of or address some of the comments from council a little more thoroughly and say that had a great opportunity to spend an hour with this team on these issues and some broader business related issues earlier today. I want to underscore for Councilmember Rist, this team is being aggressive about thinking about structural ways to improve the success of this work. I think you've seen the results of that over the last year. I think you will continue to see recommendations and ideas brought forward. And I think we know that the council is ready, willing, and able to do anything we bring before you that we think will contribute to the success of this program. And then also simply just to Mayor Pro Tem's comments, I think the other piece that I want to make sure everybody realizes is if this were just a matter of willingness in terms of how the city managed its own contracts, you would see drastically different results. We are obviously in a highly regulated environment as to how we conduct purchasing. And so the real magic of the results that you see are there are so many variables that have to be brought to the table in order to be successful in this work. And you've seen the tremendous improvement that our staff has brought over the last year. That's not easy given the amount of legal hurdles and regulatory hurdles. I want to thank our partners in the city attorney's office as well for helping to make sure that we are doing everything we can to maximize our work in this space. And then finally, one of the things we talked about earlier is this work obviously sits hand in hand with the work of your Office of Economic and Workforce Development. And, I think one of the things that I think we have a growing opportunity to do is to make sure that the staff in finance are also working in lockstep with staff in economic and workforce development to make sure that we are not just finding and recruiting businesses who satisfy these goals, but actually helping to start and grow those businesses, which is a shared effort, obviously, between this staff and the staff in economic and workforce development. I just want to reiterate for council that we understand that nexus and are leaning into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I remember back in the day, my wife and I, when we first started our catering company, we were getting our Duns and Bradstreet number and trying to go through this process, and it was dense. So the overwhelming outreach of support that you all are providing is definitely appreciated. The fact that our numbers are trending up, that is, I just think the work you all are doing are speaking directly to the values which Durham Durham represents as a community and as a city, and we'll always show up. Just let us know when. We get a lot of requests. Have to be a lot of places, but we'll definitely show up and try to be as supportive as possible, but just keep doing the amazing work. I believe in you all, and I know that you all are paying attention to what's happening at the state and federal level, so I know that you're preparing for that when we have those conversations. Everything is done by keyword search, so have faith in you guys to figure this out. But thank you. Good work. All right, our last item on the agenda is the resolution. Yeah, I know no data resource. Yeah. So colleagues, I was approached by a few community members asking for, basically what is the city, what's the city's position on what's happening at the federal level regarding USAID. I informed them that we were already on it. We were already, just paying close attention to this as well as everything. And there is, we've received several inquiries, on very specific things that are happening regarding cuts. And, I know a lot of residents have reached out, like, you're not as loud enough on immigration matters, or you're not as loud enough on the youth stuff, or you're not as loud as we get all types of inquiries. The reason why I'm proposing this resolution, and I don't plan to bring up a resolution on every single topic, but I will say that some of the things that are happening are they affect our community in a very broad way. So I'd like to just break this down personally and why I'm so adamant about taking this approach. I believe that talking about this not only impacts us here locally, it impacts us at the state level, at the federal level, and globally. When we're thinking about U.S. aid, I think about the $3 billion that are coming, to our universities here locally. I think about the 2,700 employees that are here, actually more than that, here locally. I think about all of the, the folks that are living right here in the city of Durham, really good, decent paying jobs, doing amazing work, especially around health safety, public health science and health safety, and ensuring that Durhamites are contributing to the health, safety, and these parameters of keeping us all safe, not only here locally but around the entire globe. I will admit on record that it does take energy and effort not to use choice words in result of the actions that are coming out of Washington, but this specifically is very broad reaching. This affects childcare. This affects the livelihood of households. It affects the small businesses. It affects the local economy. It affects, it literally tears at the fabric of actual families. There are folks that were, middle-class families or, just hardworking families that are doing just imperative work that are now applying for unemployment or selling jewelry to just get to the next month. So these are real implications that are happening that are affecting us in way more than just one way. So I wanted to communicate with the mayors around the Triangle, because the Triangle and Durham specifically we have a much more concentrated impact on us than most cities across the nation. We are home to NIH, FHI 360. We're home to the EPA. We're home to RTI. We have, Amtrak here. We have NPR here, the United States Postal Service. And there is a company that had $140 million slashed from their budget. There are companies that are having to lay off hundreds of people And that's one less family that's going to be able to come and spend money in downtown Durham or anywhere around Durham. It's one less family that's going to be able to go out to dinner, enjoy a good meal, and try and enjoy a decent quality of life. It's one less family that's going to have to, that will be able to just enjoy Durham. That's one less child that's going to be in childcare. So this is very far-reaching. And as we take a look at this, I was going to make some changes in some of the language, but the Supreme Court just ruled that it was illegal. So I won't suggest taking that word out. I will say also in the resolution before you, it does reference the wrong, executive order. The attorney's office caught that, and we have that corrected. In the draft, there was Executive Order 13888, which was the executive order from September 26, 2019, enhancing state and local involvement in refugee. The actual executive order that we are needing to reference is 14169, titled Reevaluating and Realigning United States Foreign Aid, which has directly impacted USAID and is being implemented by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
So what's the correct executive order? It's not the
Executive Order 14169.
And what's it titled?
Reevaluating and Realigning United States Foreign Aid.
That's what it says in here.
Again?
It didn't have the number, but that's what it said. That's what it references in, at least in what I see on the on my.
I may have given, Madam Attorney, I may have given you the wrong one then, because, yeah, sorry. The one I've been looking at had that language. So, but yeah, pretty much this is it's pretty straightforward. I will say in the 1, 2, 3, 4th, in the 4th stanza, whereas North Carolina is a leader in improving the health and well-being of communities worldwide, and it's the 4th largest recipient of U.S. aid funding in the nation. Where it says having, I'd like for it to say which has infused North Carolina's economy with more than $1 billion. So I can make those slight grammatical errors, okay, I need to read the whole thing. All right, so I will read the whole thing as proposed. We're all good over here?
The resolution.
Resolution in.
It is wrong.
It is the wrong number. All right. All right, so I'm just going to read this, colleagues, and then if we have any feedback, we can discuss it then. And I'm going to read it off my computer screen because this is not working over here. All right. This is a joint resolution, and like I said, I've been communicating with the mayors across the triangle to have us all just represented as a collective. A joint resolution calling for the immediate lifting of stop work order on foreign assistance programs and the reopening of the United States Agency for International Development, City of Durham, Town of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Whereas U.S. foreign aid assistance directly benefits Americans through, 1, building alliances and partnerships that enhance national security by stabilizing regions vital to U.S. national interests. 2, expanding markets for U.S. goods and services and advancing prosperity here and abroad, strengthening health systems abroad to prevent infectious diseases from crossing our borders. And whereas the current administration's illegal and immoral blanket stop work order on foreign assistance funding and dismantling the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, has 1, ceased the life-saving work of thousands of dedicated development professionals here and around the globe, causing avoidable death and harm whose impacts will be felt for many years to come. 2, ended university-based public health collaborations that prevent infectious diseases such as Ebola from spreading to the United States. 3, jeopardize national security, economic stability, and government efficiency. And 4, will lead our international partners to seek other funding partners, likely U.S. competitors and adversaries, to fill this hole and displace the United States influence And whereas the executive order on reevaluating and realigning United States foreign aid is in violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act and the Empowerment Control Act, because U.S. foreign assistance funding is congressionally appropriated on behalf of American taxpayers, including North Carolinians. And whereas North Carolina is a leader in improving the health and well-being of communities worldwide, and is the fourth largest recipient of USAID funding in the nation, having infused North Carolina's economy with $1 billion. And whereas North Carolina institutions, including Chapel Hill and Durham-based firms, nonprofits, universities, and partner organizations play vital roles in implementing U.S. foreign assistance programs that strengthen global health security, economic development, and humanitarian aid. And whereas the Triangle area has a significant concentration of international development organizations, as evidenced by over 1,750 employees across 60 international development organizations in the Durham Chapel Hill metro area, including nonprofits, universities, and small businesses. And whereas the shuttering of USAID has forced hundreds of furloughs and layoffs at Triangle area implementing partner organizations, prevented millions in payments owed to North Carolina-based contractors and implementing partners, and inhibiting global innovation harnessed from North Carolina-based firms in biotechnology, agriculture, healthcare, education, health security, cybersecurity, etc. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Chapel Hill and the city of Durham call on the U.S. Treasury to immediately pay outstanding invoices to North Carolina organizations for services already rendered under foreign assistance contracts. 1, and 2, urge the North Carolina Attorney General to amend pending litigation to 1, include the Department of State and USAID as defendants. 2, recognize the impacts on public institutions like universities. 3, address Secretary Rubio's implementation of executive order with the correction of 14189, and 3, stand in solidarity with affected workers and organizations demanding immediate lifting of the stop work order, congressional review of foreign assistance, local economic benefits, protection for over 1,750 Triangle area jobs tied to global development contracts, and 4, urge all community members to make their voices heard on this critical issue by calling their respective Congress members. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be transmitted to each city's respective national and state legislative delegation, North Carolina's Attorney General Jeff Jackson, North Carolina's congressional delegation, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and the United States Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vaught, this 17th day of March, which would be that night we address it. Colleagues? Yes.
I do have a question, but do we want to do public comment first?
I have 2 members. Let me do it this way. Rachel and Brianna, I know you all will sign up as resource. I'll leave it to your preference to speak or not. Would you like to? Yes, sure. All right, colleagues, and the reason why I'm saying that, there are a lot of folks that I've been communicating with and reaching out to, and every time they speak publicly, they are getting lots of attacks and even from their workplace. So I just wanted to be very sensitive to that. But my fellow CNN interviewee, it's a pleasure to meet you in person beyond LinkedIn.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for doing that interview. I hope everyone was very proud to see our mayor on CNN recently. I am Brianna Clark-Schwelm. I am a Durham resident, very proud to be here, and I'm the executive director of the North Carolina Global Health Alliance. I'm actually representing quite a few people in the room, so I'm going to ask them to stand. These are fellow foreign aid workers based in Durham. And we're here because we would really like to see our city council stand up and stand with us on this issue. Now, you heard the words international development, you heard the words foreign assistance. It might lead you to believe that these are issues better addressed on the national stage. It sounds like our mayor actually got that feedback in some way recently, and I am here to tell you that this is not just solely a national issue. This is a North Carolina issue. This is a Durham issue. This is a problem right here in our community, and we are already feeling the effects of it. As was mentioned in the resolution, North Carolina is the 4th highest recipient of USAID funding every year. And the amendment to the resolution should actually say $1 billion per year. So we are infused, our economy is infused with $1 billion per year from foreign aid investments. That is huge. And the vast majority of that comes to this district. So there are a lot of fours here. North Carolina is the 4th highest recipient of funding. Our district, the North Carolina 4th Congressional District, is the 4th highest receiving district in the country. So there are 435 congressional districts. We get the 4th highest amount of USAID funding right here, where we are standing right this moment. That is a massive number of jobs, massive number of businesses that are supported by this investment from our federal government. The kinds of organizations that receive this funding, they practice global health. North Carolina is a leader in global health. We have always been recognized as one. We're also talking about agricultural investment. So there are farmers in North Carolina that receive funding to support foreign aid. There are academic institutions based right here in our district that receive funding. All of that is at risk right now. We are looking at a potential loss of $8.5 billion that had already been promised to our state in the coming years. So that's the loss that we're facing right now. And as we stand here right now, all of that has been canceled. They officially canceled the vast majority of that last Wednesday. So we're really facing a massive loss. When I spoke to Carborough on Tuesday, I went up and I said, about 300 people have already lost their jobs. Since Tuesday, I now have to say about 500 people right here in the Triangle have already lost their jobs. That's the direct impact, the immediate impact. We know that this is going to reach many more thousands of people across North Carolina. We estimate about 2,000 people might possibly lose their jobs from this one decision in the coming weeks. And the ripple effect will be huge. The individuals who have to put their house on the market, who have to pull their kids out of childcare, who aren't going to downtown businesses, and then the other industries, the other businesses that are no longer supported by this major, source of investment in our local economy. I'm going to pass it to Rachel in just a second. I do want to just really also highlight that this is a global issue. We're talking about our local economy, but every single person behind me does this work because we care so deeply about the health and wellness and dignity of humanity everywhere, here in North Carolina and around the world. And it's difficult to even start to talk about what this impact is going to have on lives around the world. The food that is literally behind lock and key, not being given out to starving families, the medication that is not being given to sick children, the mothers that are no longer able to deliver their babies in safe environments because America decided that we didn't want to participate on the global stage and be a leader in the world anymore. I am incredibly proud to live in Durham. I am incredibly proud of this city council for even considering taking up this issue. I know that it is a challenging one to get engaged in, but I assure you this is a local challenge. This is a local problem. And everyone in this room, I believe, agrees with me when we say that we urge you to represent the interests of Durhamites and to pass this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Cooper. I'm a global health professional, very proudly, a Durhamite and a mom who lost my job as a result of the stop work order and the subsequent dismantling of USAID. Up until January, I worked to strengthen the capacity of governments in East and Southern Africa to build their resiliency, to build their ability to finance, procure, and distribute life-saving medicines for HIV, for TB, for malaria, and other infectious diseases. When I moved back from Ethiopia during COVID to the US with my husband, we chose Durham. We both had remote jobs. We could work anywhere in the US. And we chose Durham because as a global health professional, I know that this is the nexus of the most innovative and impactful work in global health. Durham has amazing institutions like the Duke Global Health Institute, RTI, FHI 360, just to name a few. And many of those folks are sitting behind me that represent those organizations. More than that, though, my Durhamite friends told me about the values of this incredible city, how we show up for each other, how we respect each other's differences, how we dance together in our celebrations, how we hold each other in the worst of times. I knew that this was the community where I wanted to raise my son. And for the last 3 years, I've been enormously grateful for the ability to do just that. Sorry. He's a proud Durhamite at 2.5 years, and he affectionately snuggles his woolly bully every night. I'm in front of you today because I'm deeply concerned about the impacts of the dismantling of USAID on our community here, for the hundreds in our community who now find themselves with no paycheck, people who 1 month ago, like myself, were gainfully employed with good American jobs. Brianna spoke about the job loss numbers, and Mayor Leo echoed this in his interview with CNN recently. These are dedicated members of our community that support our tax base, and their prospects for jobs in this area are dwindling rapidly. I'm concerned about our esteemed global health institutions, for what this means for future generations of global health professionals being trained at those institutions. I'm sorry, I'm really gross. I'm concerned for our health security. I know firsthand, I've lived in East and Southern Africa, and I know that communicable diseases know no boundaries. They don't respect those borders, and our USAID-funded work abroad kept terrible diseases like Ebola in those countries and at bay. So I want to thank the Durham City Council, and in particular, I want to thank Mayor Williams for your championship of this resolution, for showing up for your community members in times of great need, and for passing this resolution, because you understand, thank you, for you understand that what happens globally affects us here locally. Thank you for everyone in this room that is working to advocate at the state and national level to do the same. The folks that aren't listening, that are telling us, so maybe we're too big for our britches here at Durham City Council, I think they need bigger britches there. My colleagues in East and Southern Africa, many employed by North Carolina-based health orgs, are watching, and they're thanking you too. So, Asante, Sikomo, Amseganalo, thank you so much for hearing us out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all so much. Derek has napkins for everyone. Have tears in their eyes back there. I'm not crying. I don't have any tears up here. But gosh, this is how we stand up for one another in the Bull City. So I'll bring it up to my colleagues to share any commentary or any adjustments, edits, anything.
I actually had a question on what you said earlier, but I do want to acknowledge, thank you folks for coming out. And I know it's really emotional to talk about. Another side of things is that immediately upon seeing changes and major impacts like this of decreased employment is that we see those folks in eviction court pretty quickly. We talked about the loss of housing, and it's something to really be aware of. I mean, that any sort of change, those folks show up the following month, right? And we have young people who are impacted by this too, who maybe don't have savings or don't have a spouse that's able to float them in times. And so I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate the struggle, and I'm really sorry that y'all are going through that. And thank you for bringing it to us. My question is about, you said that you were going to make a change, but based on the Supreme Court case, you are not going to make a change. I'm reading the case. There's not a lot going on there. It's really, really, really short. Really, really short.
Yeah, it was a
It's the 5-4 ruling that just happened,
Yes,
yeah.
and it literally is just like, yeah, I think we're going to uphold this injunction, but it's not, they're not talking about, they really didn't delve into like anything. And so, yeah, I guess I was just wondering what you thought that changed.
It was basically whether whether current administration's illegal and immoral, whether we were going to describe it as illegal or not, because it hadn't been determined illegal. I mean, I have my thoughts on it. I think it is, but I didn't know if we were
It still
jeopardizing.
has not been determined illegal, is what I will say from this lawsuit. I feel comfortable with that language. Based on my understanding of the law, I don't think that it's legal, but if you wanted to make that change, I don't think that this case supports. I don't think, this doesn't say anything either way. There's no like holding of legality or illegality.
Listen, you went to law school at Stanford. I went on YouTube. I I trust your judgment. Mike, I was going to take it out until I heard that. Do you think we should still take that descriptor out just to be safe?
I'm comfortable with leaving it in. I think that's a question for our colleagues. I don't think that it's been determined either way, right? But it's certainly, this one singular paragraph is not giving us, it's just not giving us anything either direction. So that's up to folks. I feel comfortable leaving it in.
You feel comfortable with the law degree. I feel comfortable with, you know,
But yeah, I
The
mean,
attorney, I wonder.
Well, I think Councilmember Cook, who is also a lawyer, has stated it well. So what happened, there was a district court judge that had entered a temporary restraining order. And by a 5-4 decision yesterday, the Supreme Court said, yeah, we're not going to lift the temporary restraining order. So to Councilmember Cook's point, they haven't gotten to the substance of the matter, right? But so
they just left it at the.
they left that TRO in place, which means there are other things that still need to be decided. Ultimately.
yeah, they like literally stay in here that they didn't even decide whether or not the government complying with it is okay or not. So they just said, the judge decided this, we're gonna leave it in place. That's it.
Okay.
So.
You have an opinion?
I do. So the threshold that I have to cross for my personal statements is probably a little less than when we're placing the city's imprimatur on something. For me, when I'm acting on behalf of the city, I remember the conversation we had over the use of the term genocide, which is a legal term when we were talking about the ceasefire resolution. And although morally and viscerally, many of us thought it was genocide, but it is a legal term. And once you cross that threshold, it implies certain things. And I think that opening ourselves to this statement should be so powerful and so unimpeachable. I don't want to give any opportunity for quibbling over the legal. It is immoral, whether it's legal. Slavery was legal for a long time. It would have been appropriate to say slavery is legal. So I don't want to even give on-ramp to any type of sniping to lessen the impact of the statement. So I would recommend taking, since it's an unsettled question, the morality of it, I think, is not unsettled, but the legality and why even open ourselves up to any type of impeachment of the statement. So I would prefer taking the legal comment out. I'm certainly comfortable with morality, but yeah, I'm going to vote for it either way, whatever this council ultimately decides, but I would feel more comfortable taking illegal out, rather.
So that was my initial, I just don't want to get, I don't want the overall message to get distracted by someone saying, well, you said it was illegal and it's not illegal or whatever. It's just not worth it. I want, again, unimpeachable. That's why I was going to suggest taking it out.
I think we should, if that was your.
Cool. All right. So with the extraction of that, I also, okay, one second. We get more than one building, more than 1 billion per year. So I'd like to put more than 1 billion and then add per year. Councilmember.
I fully support the statement. I think so. I'm so proud of us doing this. I appreciate the folks who come here. You know, if you live in Durham long enough, you have tons of friends who are working in the international aid community. So thank you all for coming here and for all your colleagues who couldn't be here. Love the show support. Just this is a very small nitpicky language thing. So if you look at that second sort of group there, whereas current administration is illegal and immoral, the one we're just talking about, blanket stop, et cetera, funding and dismantling of USAID has, and then there's 4 bullet points, right? And there's all verbs after the has, right? Ceased, ended, jeopardized. That fourth one says will lead. It's a little bit awkward construction. Maybe something like encouraged our international partners to seek other funding sources or partners, just to make that a little bit more, just to make the language.
And that actually it tracks on the whereas statement as well. Exactly what you're saying. We have forced, prevented, and then is inhibiting. So that
I mean, the one further in the first,
2 paragraphs later as well.
Same thing.
Yeah, the verbiage just isn't parallel. So.
Which one is that?
So at the bottom where it says, whereas the shuttering of USAID has forced, prevented, and then Councilmember Cook, are you suggesting inhibited? Yeah, correct. For consistency.
There's a suggestion of begun to impede.
That was the edit, but inhibited works too. I don't.
Inhibited.
Inhibited would be fine, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have another one as well. Whereas the executive order reevaluating and realigning United States foreign aid is in violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act, the Empowerment Control of Act, because of U.S. foreign assistance funding is congressionally appropriated, which I think is sound, but I'm wondering if we're in the same category, editorializing that it's in violation of something. If not letter, can we say spirit?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We could easily take out violation and say that it goes against the spirit of the.
Violate spirit, I think would at least violates the spirit. That's whereas the executive order and reevaluate. Councilmember Clerk, I think you said violates the spirit or
Is in violation
of the spirit.
Is in violation of the spirit of.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, while my mic is up, I also have my thanks to these folk who have come in today. You know, the U.S. president is the only leader on the face of the planet that carries the moniker leader of the free world. No other crown, no other parliament, no other prime minister gets that designation. And I think what we are seeing is a systemic and calculated and deliberate abdication of that designation, which was kind of a cool thing being a citizen of this country. I mean, we got a lot of stuff to answer for, but to note that your leader gets called the leader of the free world. And, you know, whatever you want to say about exceptionalism is what exceptionalism does. You can't just wrap yourself in exceptionalism. It does something. It shows up in ways. And I think one of the chief ways is what we've done through the work of USAID for how long on both sides of the aisle. So you are heroes. You are the best face of our country. You're the best face of our city. So proud of each of you, and thank you for showing up here today and for repping the best of us. Very proud of you. Praying for you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So what I'll do, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here with us. I know y'all were at Carborough on Tuesday, and I'm seeing that this is with Chapel Hill. I was just curious if somebody could share what. Okay, so is the town of Carborough also doing one? Oh, they did pass it on Tuesday. Okay,
Could you, Kirsten, could you come up? Could you come up to the mic? Press that to the button on the right.
Hey. Hi, sorry, I'm Kirsten Weeks, also a Durhamite, and worked with Rachel. So Chapel Hill added a little more forceful language calling for North Carolina's federal representation to take action to better advocate for North Carolinians impacted by this executive order.
Thank you.
I would just say my preference would be to add something similar. I mean, I appreciate folks being here, and I appreciate we are good friends with our Orange County counterparts. There are other resolutions that we have, and ordinances actually, that we have worked together collectively and pushed over the threshold to get to passage. And so historically, we have added our U.S. senators and our congresspeople to those resolutions, calling on them. That is the level of power, the lever of power that is supposed to represent us. And so my ask is to add both our U.S. senators and Congressmember Fushi, who is the District 4 representative. And then another ask is, are the folks who are here advocating in Wake County as well? Because it would be wonderful to get some things in front of the city of Raleigh. Obviously, it's up to them, but.
Yeah, I know, just Brianna, before you actually go, Janet and I have been talking about this as well. So it's going to circulate the triangle.
So yeah, Raleigh does have a copy of this. They are, as the capital, and we've had a conversation with Mayor Cowell, they are hesitant to take up certain federal issues they're navigating a slightly different political situation, but I hope that Mayor Williams will continue to speak with her and see what's possible. We are actually really launching a grassroots campaign across the state, so it's not going to end here in the Triangle. Obviously, we're the most impacted in Carrboro. They actually added a line about Ukraine. Ukraine is the single highest recipient of USAID non-military spending in the whole thing. They're the highest. So, and they had passed a resolution about Ukraine in 2022. So that was where they wanted to also lend some voice, and also with the amendments around sending it to senators and Congress people. But this will also be going to some other cities around the state in the days to come.
Thank you. This is, so the part of the reason I think, and I could be wrong, that we receive so much USAID money is this, historically, it is UNC and Johns Hopkins as the best public health institutions in the entire country. And Johns Hopkins is not a public institution. It is a private institution that is, for many people, much more cost prohibitive than UNC Chapel Hill. And so I think that there's a lot here that speaks to a lot of what should make most North Carolinians proud. We have the oldest public university in the country. We have one of the most robust university systems in the country. And it is not lost on me that we are getting attacked for the very reason that we have that, and that we had historically one of, actually the best public school system in the South. We were the education state. We had the education governor. And so for those folks who are attacking us, it is clear as to why. And so I just want to, for residents who are hearing, being educated and being both a local resident and a citizen of the world is a good thing. You should not be afraid to be that. You should be proud. It is good for democracy to have folks who are educated. It is good for democracy to have a citizenry that is curious about the world and not afraid of it. And so I just want to say thank you for coming. And as somebody who is Chilean and has seen what happens in countries when democracy dies and how long it takes, even when you have free elections again, how long it takes to rebuild civic society, how long it takes to have trust again. And that is not a country with a large military, and is not a country that has nuclear capability. So for all folks in Durham and across this country, there is a lot to lose, and not just for this country, but for the world. So it is for those of us in these seats and in our communities to fight for what is right. And so again, thank you to these residents who have advocated for this.
Yeah, and real quick, I will say, under be it further resolved, it adds the North Carolina congressional delegation in there. Yeah, go ahead.
You mean national and state delegations?
Yeah.
National and state, yeah. That was going to be my question. Yeah, I wanted to ask about the having Chapel Hill on here as well, especially since we've tweaked the language, and it sounds like they're passing different things. Do we want to maintain Chapel Hill on this piece of paper?
I was actually thinking about that.
I guess we have a week and a half still to work on the language, but something to ponder there.
Let's do this. It's a joint effort still, but I think that, so Carrboro passed theirs, right? Chapel Hill passed theirs. Let this be a Durham resolution, and we'll have multiple resolutions that will support it rather than combining. I know it sounds silly, but having multiple. I just shared a post about Ramadan, and it's like 6 or 7 resolutions across the whole state, and it just looks really powerful. And that it's even the optics with it. But also, I would like the language to be consistent, and it's not necessarily consistent because our bodies are different. We think differently. We operate differently. So I'm going to propose that this be while a joint effort, Raleigh will probably be passing some version, that this be a Durham resolution.
Could we do this? I think you're right about that. I think we get tripped up in a joint resolution that has different language, but could we add a whereas that says, whereas Chapel Hill and Carrboro have already passed resolutions, other cities are considering them, just to kind of like add the weight of our colleagues who are doing this? I think it strengthens the resolution.
Maybe language where we add, whereas the city of Durham the city of Durham joins other municipalities across North Carolina.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like that as well, because we will need to go back then, and there's a couple of the whereas clauses that talk about Chapel Hill and Durham. So if we want to take Chapel Hill out and then add a whole whereas clause and just say like, we're all doing it together.
Cool. I'll take note of that. All right.
For me,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I'll just say, and I'm sure we'll discuss this more, we can have, but, I think things are changing so rapidly. There's so much retribution in the air that we see all over the country. I mean, this fear to speak out, not just fear for oneself, but also fear for others. Mayor Pro Tem sort of mentioned, you have a higher standard for speaking out on behalf of the city. I think, on certain issues, we are fearful for our neighbors and calling attention to what can happen to them in speaking out. On the other hand, we don't want to be quiet. We don't want to be silent in the face of far-reaching injustices that are taking place across our country. Not to exaggerate, but the Spanish Republicans during the Spanish Civil War, not the American Republicans, Spanish Republicans said, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. It's important to speak out, and we need to take a balanced approach. And there's not going to be a right or wrong answer. If anyone thinks that being quiet on one thing or loud on another is right, they probably don't know. None of us know the answer to these things. Things are constantly changing, and it's a barrage that we are facing, and we just need to do the best thing, what we think is the best thing in any given moment. And so I appreciate you all for coming to speak. We have family friends who are returning from Tanzania, where they've been living for many years because of this action. Their whole family's been living there, been going to school in Tanzania, and they'll be potentially moving back to Durham and looking for jobs. So this affects a lot of people. I also think City of Durham has shown, and this council has shown, that we understand the connection between the local and the global. For our sister cities, for resolutions that we've passed historically. And so I wouldn't see this as a departure from our understanding of our connection to the world whatsoever. So again, just appreciate the conversation, everything that's been said by my colleagues, and from you all for coming and speaking to us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Baker. Mayor Pro Tem.
I want to associate myself fully with everything that my friend and colleague, Councilmember Baker, has said. Mr. Mayor, you alluded, the other day we had the commander of a U.S. Nuclear submarine, attack fast submarine, at an instrument of unspeakable destruction here at City Hall with us. And part of their power is they run silent and deep. And they're incredibly destructive, but their strength sometimes is in their silence, not knowing that they're there. And what I struggle with in this season is I know how Mark Anthony is, left to Mark Anthony's devices when I'm speaking up against something. I have self-awareness, but sometimes the question is, do I want to risk spending $2 million silently to help a group of folk, as opposed to hanging a bright light over it and have it come taken from us? And I have the victory of having spoken up, but I've lost the actual impact of silently doing what I need to do. And there's no right answer in the season. In my faith tradition, the ancient scripture said there's a time and season for everything, a time to speak up and a time to be quiet, time to fight, time to be peaceful, a time to love, time to hate, time to build up, time to pull down. And I've been struggling personally a lot lately with how best to serve this city faithfully. And as my friends in the medical profession, when they take their oath, say, first, do no harm. And that's why I'm so thankful for this council, for these deliberations, because there is no right. I don't pretend to have the right answer or the right balance. So I appreciate you, Councilmember Baker, reminding us that blowing the trumpet's important, and raising the standard sometimes is important. But sometimes, like our nuclear submarines do, you run silent and deep. and can do a lot of damage when the time comes. So I say all that to say we continue to push. I'm voting for this resolution. I think this resolution needs to go forward and be loud, but there's going to be some other times coming down the pike in this current climate we're in, where we're going to have to decide, do we want to give up our location on some things, knowing what the enemy's goal is, or do we want to help folk, our neighbors and friends? The Underground Railroad didn't have neon signs on it. They hid people until the danger had passed. So, thank you.
All right, thank you all. Thank you to my colleagues for these comments. Madam Clerk, I will work with you. Derek and I will work with you on getting these edits in. He's been paying close attention, and I have a lot of scribble here on the paper as well. I think my colleagues have hit the nail on the head here. Some things I've been very loud about, some things I've been strategically loud about, some things I'm being strategically patient about. And I'm thinking constantly and consciously on, how we stand up and advocate for our community. Sometimes it needs to just be, a few people in a room strategizing, and sometimes it needs to be loud as hell. And this is one of those cases where, when I have my behind handed to me, I'm not going to take it quietly. And we're getting hit regardless on this one, and it's affecting so many parts of our local community. And I just wanted to make sure in this case we do project where the line is drawn. But there will be, just for, as Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Baker just stated, there will be some things that, we may not be as loud on. That doesn't mean we're not as intense on, for the sake of, how we're legislatively structured and how, folks can come in here and do things without some things it doesn't even matter whether we deliberate or not, because they're going to do it regardless. And some things they're legally already structured to do so. But it also sometimes you need to cry out so that your community know that you're fighting for them, and they, the community at large gets that little motivation to stand with you and fight as well. This is a marathon that we're going to sprint through, and it's going to be exhausting. But I think that what's going to happen in this moment is we're going to appreciate the art of tenacity. We're going to come together closer than ever before. So, with that being said, thank you, colleagues, for this. Thank you all. Seriously, thank you all for joining us, and we got you back.
I want to actually, and I apologize, and I want to ask you for your guidance on this. There was one item that a bunch of them, I'm sure we all received emails about this issue of like unpaved streets and which ones get paved. And I think staff had been prepared to respond on that today. We didn't add that to the agenda, so I just want to see if there's space in the agenda to raise that issue.
We're going to do that in other matters.
I was about to go to.
Oh yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Yep. So those are all of the that's all of the items I have for that. And thank you all again. So we are going to go ahead and set the agenda. Yes.
I know that you already addressed this earlier, but I have no problem staying late. I just want to be very clear about that. But just as a recognition that I do think we are going to have a lot of speakers on a couple of these rezoning general hearings. We've got the CIP budget, and we've also now got a resolution that we probably are going to have a lot of citizen speakers on. Just respecting the fact that our meeting starts at 7 p.m. and it's difficult a lot of times for people to stay really, really late. I know the agenda is in your purview, just bringing up the fact that we have these potentially four very heavy speaker items, just acknowledging that as we settle the agenda and if there needs to be any movement on that.
Yeah. Acknowledging it, but it's there. Yeah.
And also sometimes the city clerk provides us pizza around midnight if we're still in, so I'm just gonna share that as a, yeah.
Yeah. Let's settle the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Before settling the agenda, I did not hear guidance from council on item 33 as to whether or not you want to see that on GBA or on consent.
Yes. Yeah, but the edits need to be made for the final version, and we'll just have it on GBA.
Thank you. With that, settling the agenda, your consent from today is items number 1 through 28, and your GBA public hearing items are 29 through 32, and then item 33 would also be on GBA.
Move to settle.
Been moved and probably seconded to settle the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you. I'll address other matters before going into closed session.
Yeah, so we are moving forward with paving gravel streets. I think that was also part of the bond. We have received some community input that some people like their gravel streets. I just wanted to ask for a reaction from staff. I also wanted to see if it makes sense to consider some sort of opt-out option, or if that's a heavy burden for us to carry out at this point. I know that there are reasons to pave gravel streets. I know that, at least from what my understanding is, that it's more expensive to maintain gravel streets than it is paved streets. But just wanted to hear from you, and then also just get a little temperature check from my colleagues.
Good afternoon, Marvin Williams with the Department of Public Works. That's really a council decision. So I have to put the ball back in your court. So we're operating under the directive from a prior council to go through and pave all of the unpaved streets within the city. Maintenance costs, they really vary by the street because it depends on the width, how much use it gets on a daily basis, the length of the street, the number of driveways, on and on. So really the maintenance costs vary quite a bit. So whether or not we want to continue as a city with paving all of those streets, that's going to be a decision the council has to make. If you do decide to go that way, the opt-out, I would recommend that you have some type of petition where you get a majority, maybe 75% of the property owners on that street segment to agree to not have their street paved, only because we have seen that you have a loud few vocal residents that may not want something, but the rest do, but that you never hear from them.
If I could elaborate, and Marvin, please correct me if you think I misstate this or overstate it. Just in my time here, I think I've seen really two rationales that undergirded the paving of gravel streets program. The first and primary was more of an equity argument. There was a concern that neighborhoods had been left behind when their neighborhood was developed. Their developer put in gravel streets. The city accepted the streets and did not bring them up to standard. Generally speaking, we accept streets as is. It's just that most streets were paved. Some streets weren't. So I think there was a concern that gravel streets were in essence something that the city had neglected in the past, and there was a desire by previous council members to pave. Then there is, I believe, some maintenance concern. Obviously, Marvin stated today it's not a major concern. And then we've heard nuisance concerns that there's more dust on gravel streets. And so I know, I think it was Oma or, about correct. 6 or 7 years ago when one of the first streets came up, residents just felt like there were a number of negative experiences. So I certainly would concur with Marvin, that if we were to opt out, that we try to do something formal. And I would also ask council to consider allowing that to have a period of time under which we wouldn't consider it, so that we're not sort of going back and forth with neighborhoods, that this is sort of a, hey, here's your chance. And if you're opting out, you don't get to come back in 2 years and have us restart a project or restart a process. So those are just my comments. And Marvin or DCM Wimbush, if that opens any other thoughts, or if I've overstated anything, please correct.
No overstatements.
Councilman Caballero.
Thank you. And if we can follow a similar process, so I lived on an unpaved street until the last year, and I love my paved street. And I will say, at least from the perspective that I saw, it required a ton of maintenance on that road. That road was getting new gravel every year. So I just want to share that for anecdotal purposes. Every street's different, but we knew before the street got paved that if we wanted it paved, it was the petition process. And so we already had a process if you wanted to get it paved. I think we should follow something pretty similar. I know in this case, the cost would be, not that the paving before there was potentially cost on the residents to get it paved, and that wouldn't necessarily apply. But we had a good process with that. And I think if it can be tailored to this, that would be my approach, or my desire. I was on the council that made the decision to pave every road that was left. And I think it was the right approach for a growing city for lots of reasons. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think based on what I've heard, I'm interested in an opt-out option. Everything moving forward, and if a threshold, if there's a petition and a threshold is reached by folks who live along a gravel street, and everyone wants to maintain that gravel street, I would support that. So that's where I am.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, like I appreciate Councilmember Caballero mentioned that the previous action you all took. I want to respect the previous council and the decision they made on this regarding equity and maintenance and so forth. At the same time, like I know Wallace Street, I've been down Wallace Street, and I understand the concerns at least expressed by email that it's certainly a traffic calming thing, having a gravel road there, easier to walk down, not as many cars going fast. So I think, yeah, I would support some kind of opt-out petition within as the manager said, within some time period. So it's not some ongoing thing we got to kind of manage. Within some time period, if a petition, we can figure out the process, how many residents has to be or whatever. But I think that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I would support that.
I can't imagine being one of the leaders of a major American city and not paving the roads. When we first had this whole conversation was born out of the other side of the tracks phenomena, where you could drive into a city and tell where the Black and poor folk lived by the conditions of the roads, and where the wealthy folk lived on the other side of the tracks by the conditions of the roads. The funny thing is, this started with a forced opt-out. The government opted these roads out from being maintained. When you live in a city, there's some things we're obligated to deliver. Emergency response. It's much easier for police and fire trucks to get down a paved road than a gravel road. There's much more damage to cars from rocks being kicked up when you drive the cars down those roads. There's much more pollution from dust being kicked up. I cannot imagine having a city. Now, there are places you can live if you want to live in a rural type of environment, but this is a city. And when we agreed to do that, to pave the roads in the city and trumpet the folk, if you're going to live in this city, you're going to drive on paved roads. When we did it, it was in direct response to the overwhelming historical evidence as to why there was such a critical mass of unpaved roads in certain areas and not others. So, and if we do allow neighbors to opt out, in 5 years, if there are new neighbors or new people living in the neighborhood, I don't see why we would allow neighbors to opt out of what I think is just a basic threshold standard of living in a modern city, only to have new neighbors move in maybe 5 or 10 years later and say, well, why aren't our roads paved? There are people asking us today, why aren't their roads paved because of stuff that happened 50 years ago. And this was an attempt to address that. I just, if we were in a rural environment, perhaps, but I don't see why a modern city, 4th largest city in our state, 75th largest city in the country, would give people an opportunity to opt out of having a paved road within the city proper. But that's me. And again, this comes from historically why those roads weren't paved in the first place on the other side of the tracks. I don't want to live in a city where you can tell where poor Black people live based upon the conditions of the road. And that's precisely what this was. And that's why we addressed it as a council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. I would imagine 99% of the gravel roads would end up getting paved. I think this would probably not be used very much. But there are, we'll see. I guess it would be the answer. We'll see, what streets and what neighbors who live on those streets would actually want to come forward with something like this. But we heard, I think it would be responsive to at least provide residents where there's an overwhelming amount of support, because every street has different conditions. And some streets, yeah, it's a traffic calming device. It slows things down. People are just more comfortable with how it is. What's that? So, yeah, so I still think that even with an opt-out option, 99% of these gravel roads are going to get paved, if not 100. I don't know. It would be up to residents, but I think just at least allowing an option is a fair thing to do.
There's been overwhelming support not to have development in neighborhoods. I mean, should we give an opt-out option for that as well? I made the point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Just going to say briefly that the pros to leaving a gravel street are ones that I think we should be incorporating anyway when we're building our paved streets. And I do think that there's an important comment here about how folks feel like what the standards we are following, whether those standards are good enough in terms of traffic calming, in terms of runoff, right? And what they're going to receive in their streets. And if we're looking at concerns from residents that they think that a paved street means that things are going to go too fast, then perhaps we're just not building enough of our traffic calming when we're building our new streets, or we're not at least communicating that to residents. So I'm just pointing out the fact that when we're talking about benefits of these unpaved streets, those are not benefits that are exclusive to gravel. They could be incorporated in the way that we build our paved streets as well.
Too fast until they call 911.
All right. Well, it's always the unexpected conversations that can surprise you. All right.
Could staff just come back with us with a process of what it would look like around an opt-out option? Not that is a decision, because quite frankly, like, I lived on a gravel road it did not help water quality. The gravel just sits in the thing. It means that the drain, the design of the road does not drain properly, right? There's lots of things that people think, it's the same as when folks, this is a funny example, but like the development at Gregson and Club with the little 8 houses and everyone was all mad, that actually creates less runoff than some of the large ranch houses around there, even though you wouldn't think that. So I think that sometimes we think a thing and it's not, and we assume a thing as a resident or individual, and it's not actually backed by. So the water quality and the runoff, I would say that having things go where they need to go and not get caught up on a gravel road is going to help your stormwater, because it's going to actually hit the actual gutter and the system that's in place. So I just would love for staff to just give us an option of what an opt-out would be. I appreciate the mayor pro tems. I don't want fire trucks down my road because I don't like the noise, or I have an apartment downtown and I bought the apartment and now I'm mad if there's noise. There are certain things that you are giving up if you choose to live in a more densely. And the nice thing about this country, at least at this point, is you can choose to live lots of different places. Like no one is making you live somewhere. And so I just want to remind folks that, like, I hear those individual resident concerns, but that is the tension of living in a place with lots of population, is that you're not going to necessarily get everything your way just so. You are giving some things up when you choose to live in a city. And so I don't want to create a culture where, this isn't McDonald's. I don't get to go up and buy exactly what I want and get exactly that. That is not what it means to be in civic society and live in a city. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Could you work on moving the railroad from my apartment? Because it's just too loud. It's too loud. It makes my bed shake. And my whole building, I'm sure we will all vote for that. No. This is no, thank you for bringing it up though. This is civic engagement, and I appreciate the discussion.
I'm not sure we have clear direction, so
I
I'm
don't
gonna
think we have clear
ask you
direction.
to clarify if there's a majority of council that's looking for something to change or not. Thank you.
I'm not really interested in doing, I mean, I guess we could look at what it would look like, but you know, when it comes to like the whole runoff thing, I mean, I think about Pickett Road. Like, do you want the water standing or do you want it moving? You know, and
So to clarify, a gravel road is not considered to be a pervious road. Our stormwater division has looked at that for years. It functions essentially just like a paved road. So there's no benefits to stormwater on a gravel road. Because by the time we pack in the gravel in order to stabilize it for vehicles to use on a daily basis, it's just as hard as asphalt. And as far as a petition process, it will look exactly like an infrastructure petition to have infrastructure added. It will just be the reverse. We would just have to simply get a petition sponsor from whatever street is looking to opt out of having the road paved, and a majority of the property owners, not people that live on the street, but the actual property owners, would have to sign off on the petition in agreement that the city would not pave their road. And we would recommend a 3 to 5 year period that those property owners could not come back to the city requesting that we restart that program. Because our hope is that we're complete with the majority of the dirt road paving program within the next 3 to 5 years. And we wouldn't want to start
We've
and
been
stop the
super aggressive
process.
with this program, and it has been one of our big successes on infrastructure. It has been the amount of money put and the amount of success and the amount of roads that have already been paved.
yeah, I'm going to follow the lead of the former council for me, which means I don't think we have. Let me give you clear guidance. What would you like to do?
I'm comfortable not even looking at how to assess because I think that's an extra expenditure. And I appreciate y'all's comments. So I'm comfortable with moving forward with the paving as it's planned
And no opt-out is what you're saying.
and no opt-out.
All right. So your guidance is to don't worry about it. All right. Thank you all. All right. At this time, at 3:41, we will take 5 minutes to walk down the hall to go into closed session in the council suite conference room. It's 3:41. Let's start at 3:46 in the council suite conference room. Thank you. We will adjourn from closed session by coming back into open session. We'll do that where we are. So for those that are watching, we will formally, Madam Clerk, have that recorded. And at that time, we will end the meeting. We can't end that. We're not over yet. We're going into closed session.